always wondered. Remember, we first learned Shabbos when you're younger. Shabbos is what you learn in yeshiva. It's a yeshivish masechta, but Eruvin is not. So I remember when we were learning this with Rabbi Bronchspiegel before I was married. So I had my Gemara Shabbos and I had my notebook, and I would make note of, in even the notebook, what every psak of the Rambam, like the Ein Mishpat. Yeah. So the Ein Mishpat tells you, it gives you reference. Like you find Shulchan Aruch and Rambams and all these things. So I made notes of those things and make sure to look at every Rambam. Every Rambam that comes up in Maseches Shabbos. By the way, there's other halachas, but you realize, wait a minute, there are a lot of halachas in the Rambam, and even Hilchot Shabbos, not even Eruvin. Eruvin is the Rambam has, and then there's also Shabbos. So you think that everything in Maseches Shabbos is in Shabbos, and what's in Eruvin is Hilchos Eruvin. But it's not that way. There's a ton in Shabbos that you only get to if you've learned Maseches Eruvin. Okay, so that was fun to realize that, the Rambam talks about how Rabbi Yudinasi divided up the orders of the Mishnah and the tractates. So why did the Rambam stick with that? The Rambam talks about how great, Rabbi Yudinasi is. At the end of the chain of tradition, you had a great man who was just like Moshe Rabbeinu. He knew all the Torah, and he was very, very modest. He incorporated all the good qualities that needed to be there in order to produce this monumental work. And then he goes into the structure of the Mishnah. And by the way the Rambam describes the structure of the Mishnah is the way the Rambam describes the structure of the Yad HaChazaka. It's as though Rambam saw himself as continuing this momentous work, right? So Rabbi Yudinasi did this, and he explains why he divided the Masechtas the way they did, and the exact order of the Masechtas. By the way, it's interesting. It's as though the Rambam was there. I'm sure that there's those who argue the Rambam. How did he know this? By the way, that's the Siddharim, the exact order of the Siddharim, why those 6, and how to divide up the tractates. That's kind of interesting. So why didn't Rambam stick with that? Rambam instead said, no, I want 14 books, and here's how I'm going to divide up the halachas, and here's how I did it. And it's not in Rabbi Yudinasi's order.
It's much easier to use in Rambam's order.
You think so?
And it's even easier to use in the Torah's order, which is why we stick with Shulchan Aruch and not with...
Yeah, but the Torah doesn't do everything. Torah sticks to a very limited...
No, he doesn't. He does maybe half or so.
Not even half. All the Kachim and Taros are missing.
His Torah Kachim, that's right, about half of the Mishnah.
There's a lot. Also, a lot of Zerayim is not in there. Okay.
Here in Yoredah, he's quite something.
It's right, but no, there's a lot missing. There's a lot missing.
There's Tzedakah even.
And there's also things from Sanhedrin and other things. If you want, we can go through what is missing from the Rambam that didn't, or Shas that didn't make it into Torah Shulchan Aruch. And it seems that every time they come out with something new, it's even less. Shulchan Aruch itself doesn't even mention all 39 malachos.
Right, yeah. He's missing 6.
Yeah, so it's better. My point is,
in his Akdama to Hilchot Shabbos, he says.
Yeah, I'll now list all of them.
The Torah says, I just the popular ones because people know the Melachot.
But still, at least he mentioned it. You should. I don't even the Shulchan Aruch does he even mention that there are 39 malachos. He does mention it.
As I said, the Torah says you don't need to mention them because Benot Yisrael Yoda'ot.
But the Shulchan Aruch just happened to skip them. Yeah. Now, what's my point? Saying why didn't the Rambam stick with Rabbi Yudinasi's breakdown?
Because he thought his one.
He thought it was superior. Yeah. Apparently, so that's kind of interesting.
Also, different target. You can't paskin from the Mishnah. But supposedly
you could paskin. But the Rambam is putting psak. But why didn't he put in the order of the Mishnah if the order of the Mishnah is so great?
Because it's not good for psak.
Really, you think so?
Teaching.
I don't know. Okay, so here we have the Shir Shel Yom, and as we saw before, for the Musafim there's only one Shir. For the Tamid, there's one Shir, and that's the ones with the Shir Shel Yom. Even Shabbos, the Tamid of Shabbos has Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbos, and then for the Musafim, there's another Shir. And if there's multiple Musafim, so there's only one Shir. Now, the Vilna Gaon sort of has a minhag like this. Every day there's one Shir Shel Yom. But as I pointed out, it doesn't exactly reflect what's in the temple. Mm-hmm. Instead, for example, on Shabbos, why do we say Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbos and not, let's say, the Shir of Musaf, which was Ha'azinu? Mm-hmm. So the answer is, we say the Shir Shel Yom. That's the more universal minhag. And the Shir of any particular Musaf was not part of Am Yisrael's minhag. The Vilna Gaon started incorporating Musafim, so to speak. Except the Vilna Gaon doesn't do things exactly that way. Why? because in the temple they had a shir with the Tamid and a shir with the Musaf. And the Vilna Gaon's minhag in the synagogue is either or. So if there's a Musaf, not the Shir Shel Yom, except on Shabbos when it's the Shir Shel Yom and not the Shir Shel Musaf. And the Vilna Gaon seems to have, let's for example, like they say here, Rosh Chodesh. The Vilna Gaon is apparently saying that the Shir for Rosh Chodesh is Barchi Nafshi. He's not the first, but there's no Talmudic source for such a thing. Let's see. But the Vilna Gaon isn't saying necessarily this is the Shir that the Levim sang at Musaf. He's just saying in the synagogue, this is an appropriate song for the day. And by the way, why is the Vilna Gaon doing this? As I pointed out to others, the Vilna Gaon has one song a day, one psalm in the synagogue per day, is because the Vilna Gaon has a shita, no adding psalms to the public service, except for Shir Shel Yom, which is slightly educational value. So nothing else. And if you're going to do it, just one. Also, they ask about the Vilna Gaon. He has a song for Hanukkah and for Purim. There was no special sacrificial service in the temple on those days, even in Second Temple times. On Purim, they did the Tamid, and that's it. And it was Tuesday, so they sang, well, actually it was in Jerusalem, so it would be Wednesday, right? They kept Shushan Purim in the temple. So Shushan Purim, they did not, this year it's going to be Wednesday, they did not, they did not have a Shir Shel Yom. And for Hanukkah, even though it's pretty clear, this psalm even says this is for Hanukkah, it cannot be that there was a special sacrifice on Hanukkah for Hanukkah. So what is the Vilna Gaon doing with the Shir Shel Yom? What is he accomplishing? We don't know. At least I don't know.
You've seen in the Mishneh in the last Simon that he says that it used to be the minhag to read Shir Mizmor LeAsaf, number Pei Gimel every day.
Yeah. The Rambam also mentions things like that.
Yeah, it's not a thing anymore.
Okay.
Ashkenaz people still do it.
Here's an important thing about how minhagim work.
But then it was a thing in Rashi's time, apparently, when they did not have Shir Shel Yom yet.
Rambam mentioned Shir Shel Yom already. It's interesting that the Rashi didn't have it as like a set thing. Here's what happens with minhagim. Understand this. Read Masechah Sofrim. Minhagim come and go. Right. There are too many people who are like, well, this is a minhag, now we got to do it, we got to stick to it. Yeah. If you really were like that, half the minhagim that you know would never happened, and another bunch of minhagim that you don't recognize would have stayed. But really, the truth is, like I said, minhagim come and go, and even sometimes even halachas, unfortunately. I think that's something you have to stick to. The Vilna Gaon was aware of this. So he wasn't very much into just do what everybody's doing. And he created a minhag also. Some minhagim, no, we don't do them. I was talking to someone today about Parshas Hamon happened this week. It became the Jewish thing. Everybody's doing it. It was Tuesday of Parshas B'Shalach, so you have to say Parshas Hamon. Thank God for, it used to be, I had email. So old people would send me an email saying, remind me to do the Jewy thing. And now there's the WhatsApp. And thanks to that, I could get a lot of people sending to groups and to me personally, don't forget, it's Tuesday Parshas Hamon. But I did better than them. I went over the Parsha this week on Tuesday. Told one guy, he's like, here, it's Parshas Hamon, written 3 times in Hebrew and once in Aramaic. You have to say it. And I said, no, I think I'm going to go over the Parsha anyway. So, the whole Parsha, it's Shala. But it was really weird. It's really weird that those things really caught on. I guess you have to be like the Shlo or other Hasidic Rebbes who create minhagim at a whole club. Well, no, I'm saying Hasidic Rebbes, the Shlo and Hasidic Rebbes, and the Shlo was not a Hasidic Rebbe. He was a forerunner of them.
Yeah, it was 50 years before.
So many things the Shlo made, I wouldn't say he innovated, right? That became the thing that people assume that's what you do. Your art scroll sitter tells you, I remember becoming a bar mitzvah boy, the art scroll sitter says, this is what you say when you put on your towels, this is what you say when you put on your tefillin. The Rambam never heard of this, and the Vilna Gaon rejected it. But don't let that get in the way of a fun practice. Right? It's all from the Shlo. And all those things on Rosh Hashanah, it's from the Shlo. So the Shlo had a special zchus that which he innovated and told people to do was basically accepted without question. It became, like Archibald says, the universal practice. Very interesting how that works. The Ari also. So Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimanov, he's the one who told people, read Parshas Hamon. There's another thing. Shulchan Aruch says, There are some parshas you should read every day, like Akedah and Haman and Aseres Dibros. It's right at the beginning of Shulchan Aruch. It's in the first Siman. Yeah, but I'm just saying, Shulchan Aruch says this. Most people don't do that. The Vilna Gaon rejected it. So you should study Torah every single day. But why these particular passages? Each one has its milah, but it says, what's the most important passage in the Torah? What's the most important pasuk? Shema Yisrael, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Es HaKeves Echad Ta'aseh V'Boker. Right?
That's good. That's Parshas
I like that one.
It's Tamid.
Yeah, Parshas Tamid, because it tells you have to serve God day in and day out. You don't get a vacation. There are some people. Well,
if you look into the Rambam, it brings you totally different passages to read.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying that these things exist, but he said Dafka read on this Tuesday. I feel sorry. I explained this to my daughter. There are some people who believe that they take a vacation. You know what it means if you go on vacation? It means today you do not have to wake up to go to shul. Today you do not have to put on tefillin. That's terrible. Today you do not have to daven. Today you have Torah. Today you can do averos, like a hall pass. That's the American expression. That's ridiculous. Most basic service of God is the same thing every single day, morning and afternoon. No exceptions. And there's Musafin. And if you can't, you can't. Honest Rahman Patre. No lambs for whatever reason, so you can't do it. If you're really stuck in bed, you can't go to shul. But there's no such thing as taking a vacation from your most basic obligations to serve God every single day. So I like that one. Either way, the fact is they created this Jewish practice, which is kind of interesting. Why? Who has the schus of creating Jewish practice that catches on? Who doesn't? Right? Daf Yomi, great idea. I claimed a few years ago, Rabbi Nachman just was smart. He was very brilliant. If the Chafetz Chaim had written that he wants people at his grave on Yom Kippur or on Rosh Hashanah or something like that, everybody would be there. Rabbi Nachman was the one who actually did it. So that's why everybody goes to his kever on Rosh Hashanah. Let's see. So that's the song's question there. And the Rambam says that basically, how many days of Chol Moed can you have? What's the maximum number of days of Chol Moed you could have? 6. Yontif is on Shabbos. Shmini Atzeres is on Shabbos. 6 Chol Moed days. And then he points out that that's the minority of days. Minority of years. One of the days of Chol Moed will be Shabbos most years. In which case, you only have 5 Shirim. Yimotu Yidacheh, he says. The 6th day also is Nidcheh, which is what... Now, you don't have this for Passover. The Rambam's not clear what do you do on Passover. But the Vilna Gaon basically has it, that in his minhag of what you say in the synagogue, also, there are 7 days of Passover and an 8th day. You familiar with this? 7 days of Passover. 6 days of Passover and the 7th day. The 8th day is just in Chusarts. 6 days of Passover and the 7th day is independent. If all 6 days of Passover are weekdays, that is Passover starting on Sunday, so you're going to say all 6 psalms, all 6 songs. And then the 7th day is Shabbos, that's the Shabbos song. Or, one day of Passover, the first 6 days will be Shabbos, in which case you only have 5 of the Passover songs, and the Shabbos song will be on Shabbos. The 6th song is knocked out, and on the 7th day, you have the special song that's reserved for the 7th day. You familiar with this minhag? No, you Yekis. Litvaks like to come there to Israel and read the chart there. That's how it basically goes with the Vilna Gaon's songs on Passover reflect what the Rambam writes about what you should do on Sukkot.
On the other hand, the Kriyat Torah of Pesach is always interesting every year.
Actually, it's most years it's the same thing. It's always what is it? Meshach Torah, Kaddish B'Kaspa, Psul B'Madbara, right? And then Shlach Buchra. That is most years. Yeah. No matter where Shabbos lands, because 2 out of the combinations, Shabbos is one of the Yom Tovim, so it doesn't change it. And one of those years, Shabbos is, Shlach Buchra, Kaddish B'Kaspa, okay? And Psul B'Madbara, Psul is the 5th day of Passover anyways. That's the Shabbos. It's only when Pesach is on a Thursday, like this year, that it changes the order around. And that only happens. Passover is basically on Thursday. We did the calculations about 2 out of every 7 years. Yeah. 5 out of 7 years, the order stays because once again, the Shabbos of Passover is either the 5th day or it's the first day or the 7th day, and it doesn't affect it then. Okay. Wow. Good statistical things there. Yeah. Okay. We also pointed out that this year is unique. We went a decade without Rosh Hashanah being on Shabbos, and more than that. We've gone 17 years without Rosh Hashanah being on Shabbos and it being a Shana Shlema. Mm-hmm. The last 2 times, and that finally Rosh Hashanah was on Shabbos, it was a Shana Chasera.
Oh. So what's the difference?
So how does it work? That determines when Hanukkah is going to fall. If it's a Shana, if it's the year starts on Shabbos and it's a Shana Shlema, then the first and last day of Hanukkah will be Shabbos, which is quite rare. It hasn't happened in 17 years.
Yeah.
So someone was asking me about this. I told him, he asked about Minhag, and this is ironic. It's the same guy who I'm trying to tell him the Itim Levina calendar changed something in the last 2 years. It used to be, this is not halacha. You're supposed to, I put that in scare quotes. You're supposed to announce when the molad is, so that everybody knows when the molad is, because one of the Rebbes said, before they tell you when it's Rosh Chodesh in Shul, before they tell you it's going to be Rosh Chodesh Shavat on a Monday, it's good to know when the molad is. As I pointed out, that never was a halakha requirement. The Rebbe was the first one to tell you this. 2, even if you can read that it says the molad is so-and-so time, you don't know when it is on the clock. It's a huge machlokas achronim because no one actually has a tradition when that is according to our clock. We just know that according to the clock the Rambam, for example, is using. They said that the molad is at the 5th hour and 75 halakim, but you don't know where to put that on your clock anymore because you don't know what clock they were using.
It is the statement that Briat HaOlam was on Yom Baharad. Yom Sheni?
No, the first molad was at Baharad. But they don't know where to place that. They don't know where to place that first molad, according to our clock. By the way, but it doesn't matter because you still calculate when the molad is. If the molad is after noon on that particular day, noon according to the clock, when we don't know what it is, it's about noon, but we don't know when it is. You could
especially where?
Yes, good. I'm glad you know that. So it doesn't really matter. It just tells you when to push off Yom Tov. By the way, well, what happened? Here's what happened. The Itim Levina calendar used to write, here's the molad that people say, Hanahug to Lachriz, that they announce in the shul. So it used to be, the Gabbai reads, the molad is Ploni time, and then the Chazan says Rosh Chodesh Adar will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Shalom Al Yisrael. But Itim Levina calendar in the last 2 years put it, Moag Nog Lahachriz, so the Gabbai reads it, Rosh Chodesh will be Tuesday, Wednesday, and the molad is, they told him, so you're losing. One, I would tell you not to announce the molad. The Beis Yosef would probably tell you you're doing it, you're messing with the halacha by doing that because you're misleading people. As I pointed out in the book, and as I pointed out earlier in Shirim, you can go look this. This new minhag does not fit with the Beis Yosef. It doesn't fit with the Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't fit with a lot of Rishonim Achronim who tell you not to do it. It leads to worse problems. By the way, announce it. Tell people when the molad is. I don't care. But you're supposed to do it before you tell them when it's Rosh Chodesh, because the point is, before you learn it's Rosh Chodesh, then you hear about the molad, not the other way around. And Itim Levina calendar suddenly has a thing that says, the Rosh Chodesh is then, and the molad is this. Shkoyach, you lost it. And then you have the goofy thing, that the guy announces it. Rosh Chodesh will be Tuesday, Wednesday, the molad is this. And then the Chazan says, Rosh Chodesh will be Tuesday, Wednesday. Shkoyach, you just said it. And you ruined it. Yeah. And you ruined it. So he's telling me, well, the calendar says it. I just do what it says. You know? I said, well, don't you remember what you did last year? They just changed the print on it. And then, fortunately, he was, I guess, foolish enough to ask me this question. Who's changing the minhagim? How did these things change? How did the minhag change? I said, the same way Itim Levina printed a new calendar and fooled you. You don't know what the minhag is on Hanukkah. That's the 8th day Shabbos, 8th day of Hanukkah. The fact that there are 2 Shabbases in Hanukkah has not happened in almost 2 decades. And before that, it's a rare thing. So don't tell me that this is your minhag that you know. You don't remember what you did last time. I could change the minhag on you, and you wouldn't know any better. Just like Rabbi Duker has been showing people. They changed around the Haftarahs. A new printed Chumash comes out in 1500, and then it makes it to somewhere other place, and suddenly the people are scratching in. What's our minhag of Haftarah? We'll just follow what's in the Chumash now. Whoever printed the Chumash gets to set the minhag. I opened up a Korean Siddur. Oh, it says I had a daughter. I'm going to have to do a Zeved Habat. Well, my grandfather, you don't know what that is, but it's in the Korean Siddur now. Apparently you're supposed to do it. It's not a baby naming ceremony. So things change. I could show you things change. Why? It doesn't happen that often. You don't have a good memory. You're not an astute student. You're not the student who remembers things. And all it takes is a new printed chumash or a new printed siddur or a new printed luach to change your minhag on you or to add something. It says I'm supposed to say all this. Like the fellow who said the whole ushpizen thing, the whole Yehi Ratzons and Hinemuchim Mezumans when he sits in the sukkah. He's not a Kabbalist. He's a Litvak. But it's printed the ArtScroll Boxer, so I have to say it. It's 3 pages of text. So now I have to say it. Okay, fine. That's how you change things on people. You could change things around by printing the siddur. So that's what the guy did. And you should know, the Eaton Levina calendar did this to you most recently. It told you to do things that were never done before, that don't make any sense, but because it's printed, I keep the old calendars. Here it is. You could find the date they changed it. You find when the mutation entered the genetic code. It happened here. So there you go. Well,
I hope you wrote a letter to the editor.
I've been trying to call the Eaton Levine calendars. They've been misleading Am Yisrael for a long time. The times in the fast. Well,
right?
Yeah. Someone posted an old shir from Rabbi Barchim. He was saying it 20 years ago. The fast ends at sundown, and if you say it ends at Tzeis, it's Tzeis of Rabbeinu Tam, which is much later. So they say it ends at Tzeis, but they use the Tzeis of the Villadon. Shalom al Yisrael. Okay? You can read the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan also says it very clearly. The Vilna Gaon's actual opinion is the fast is over at sundown, and I think they wrote in Hilchot Shabbos that the fast should end at Tzeis anyways. Afal Pichein, he was talking about either Tisha B'Av or Yom Kippur because there's a Doraisa, and it was eventually he knocked down that svara for the other fast days. But whatever, what are you going to do? The point is, those in the know, and everybody else is misled by the calendar makers. Or the whole thing that the Pri Chadash's opinion about when to read the Megillah became the dominant opinion. Rabbeinu Tam would say, of course you can read the Megillah by day on Tanis Esther, but we don't hold the Rabbeinu Tam. So what? That's not the only reason to read the Megillah by day. The Shulchan Aruch's reason is very clear. Shulchan Aruch says, we don't wait until nightfall to read the Megillah on Tanis Esther, when Purim starts, for the sake of the sick people and the people who have a hard time, for their sake, not just for them, the Tzibur reads it early, before the fast is even over, late in the afternoon, after Plag, basically. That's what the Tzibur is supposed to do. But now it's like the worstest thing, because we don't hold like Rabbeinu Tam. And it's funny because they're doing like Rabbeinu Tam every time they daven Ma'ariv early, saying Kriyat Shema with its brachas. Very strange. So the calendar makers are at fault for this.
It must be that the practice was already long ago that you read the Megillah by night, Dafka, because there's a Teshuvah where someone was asked, I had the last 5 minutes for Kiddush Levana. Your Megillah night reading.
Okay, no, that's not the reason. It used to be.
So why is there such a child?
Hold on a second. Because it's very hard to get together to read the Megillah.
Yeah.
They're allowed to read the Megillah already late in the afternoon on Matanas Esther, but in Achinami there people are working and they end up reading it at night. I've helped people like that.
There has been both practices.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The new idea is, Chas v'shalom, you should read Megillah while it's still Tanis Esther. You have to wait for nightfall for the fast to end, and then you read the Megillah. That's what they do in all the synagogues. Because the worst thing in the world to even entertain that you do, like the Beis Yosef writes explicitly in the name of the Rishonim, that the Megillah would be read on Tanis Esther as the day is coming to an end, so that people could break their fast as soon as possible. So that certain people could break their fast as soon as possible. That became the worstest thing. I don't get it. But by the way, have I ever done this? No. Why? Because I don't have a crowd. People are busy anyways. But if it would come up, I'm prepared to read the Megillah, let's say, for the wife or whatever it is. Basically, the only thing that's prevented until this point is kids. The fact that the children are around. But I would imagine that, thank God it's not anytime soon, but once all the kids are grown up and out of the house, this would be something that'd be a good option. And I understand why to do it in the old folks' home, for example. That's the prime place. The old folks' home. And I also was telling people about this for Passover. You know my shtick. Why are they telling them they have to start their Seder after nightfall? That itself is chumrah al gabi chumrah al gabi chumrah, like 5 layers of chumrah. God willing, when Korban Pesach comes back and people study the halacha, the pre-Tosafistic halacha, which says explicitly in the Talmud, in 2 places, and Rashi explains this way, and it's in the Rambam, when are you supposed to eat Korban Pesach? After Shkia. That's the time for eating Korban Pesach. And people will be like, wait a minute, all along the time for eating Korban Pesach was after Shkia? assuming you already had Arif Shemesh the day before, unless you're waiting to. So wait a minute. So why did they tell me I couldn't even have Kiddush after Tzeis? The time for Yom Pesach is explicit in the Torah as Shkia, before they created the Seder. So why? So isn't that the time to eat the matzah also? And indeed, there's a pasuk that also says the same thing. But whatever. Don't let these things get in your way.